दही बड़ा खाने का मन है।
वाह क्या स्वाद!
असली स्वाद तो MDH दही बड़ा रायता मसाले से ही आता है।
From the Republic Media Network headquarters, it's time for Arnab Goswami on the debate. Arnab Goswami on the debate.
On the show tonight, big trouble for the Samajwadi Party politician turned so-called professor at Ashoka University. Really gets pulled up despite all the support of the Tukre gang. 8:30 p.m. tonight, another top Congress leader criticizes Operation Sindoor. He says it's Thodi Si activity. Congress party out of sync with the sentiment of people in the country. And at 9 p.m. tonight, the biggest story of the day, Amit Shah's steadfast promise that he made in Parliament is happening. The biggest terrorist leader of the CPI Maoist has been killed. The end of Red Terror is now near. Ladies and gentlemen, at the start, I want to say that I know the reason you like my program and the reason you watch me is because I talk about the things that the Lutyens media will not talk. I talk about the things that the Tukre brigade will not talk. And therefore, you would remember I was the only one, ladies and gentlemen, who criticized the views of the so-called associate professor at Ashoka University when he said that Colonel Sophia Qureshi of the Indian Army, who led the press conferences during Operation Sindoor, that her presence was mere optics. And he had run down the presence of a Muslim woman officer from the Indian Army about whom we are so proud. He ran her down and in a misogynistic way tried to say that if a woman is there in a press conference of the Indian Army, and that also if the woman happens to be a Muslim woman wearing an Indian Army uniform, then she's there only for optics. This was insulting not just to Colonel Sophia Qureshi, it was insulting to the Muslim community, it was insulting to the Indian Army. It was an attempt in a time of war by this malevolent professor to drive a religious wedge within our armed forces. And what can be worse than that? What can be more terrible than that, and opportunistic than that, and political than that, to try and divide the Indian Army on religious lines? And ladies and gentlemen, at that time, a lot of free speech activists came out and said, why is Arnab criticizing what the professor has said? Has Arnab not heard about freedom of expression? Of course I have. Of course I have. But I believe that if you're not a nationalist, you should not be a journalist. And that's my view. And my view is that you can have freedom of expression, but that does not mean you can abuse the nation. And those people who constantly keep quoting freedom of expression, 19(1)(a), and say that, oh, this allows us to say what we want, have been told by the Supreme Court today, no less, in its strong observations against this Professor Ali Khan Mahmudabad, that you cannot say anything against the nation, you can't dog whistle a community, and then say that it's free speech. The most important thing which the Supreme Court has said, it's not about this man's passport having been held back, or the fact that he'll now be subject to an investigation by a special investigation team. I'm not thrilled about the procedure. What I'm thrilled about tonight is that the court has said that free speech must be used with patriotic responsibility. The court has said, and I quote, you should know what is happening. There is a right to free speech where is the duty? The basic question the court is asking is, you have a right to free speech, but where is your duty? You can't say, I have free speech to abuse the country. I have free speech to invite Pakistanis to abuse the country when we are bombing Bahawalpur. You can't say that. I have this free speech to sell my country's national interest I have my free speech to abuse it to a point where a journalist on my country's soil gets praised by Hafiz Saeed. You can't say I have free speech and rights to sit and watch cricket with Dawood Ibrahim and then say, that's my free right too in a democracy. So you want to have all the rights, but you do not want to have any of the responsibilities. And that is not just a travesty of facts. It is ill intention, ladies and gentlemen. Ill intention that is ill-advised. And which is why, look at what the court says. There is a right to free speech, but where is the duty? As if the whole country for the last 75 years is only distributing rights and no duty. The fundamental rights also say there is a duty of every citizen to uphold and protect the sovereignty, unity and integrity of India. That is clearly mentioned, 51A. And if you cannot work for the sovereignty, unity and integrity of India and you want to sit on a very plush campus of Ashoka University, teaching a very entitled group of students how to speak against the country, how to violate national interest, how to speak against the interests of the tricolor and the armed forces, and then say, I am professing peace, and I'm a professor of peace. You're not. You're a professor of opportunism. You're a professor of personal convenience. And I do not think that's being a professor at all. Now I say once again to the Ashoka University founders, owners, shareholders, investors and supporters, listen to me. See what was said by the Supreme Court today. I ask you today, Ashoka University, what is your responsibility? You want to look away? You want to believe this did not happen in your campus? Or is it that you just don't care about the country? If you do, if you care about the country, then create a campus in which not one anti-national word will be said. And this should also be a message to all campuses across the country. Have all the free speech you want, but not at the cost of national interest. No more Tukde Tukde Brigade. No more Bharat Tere Tukde Honge. No more of the kind of nonsense that Ali Khan Mahmudabad said. Let's debate.
On May 18, 2025, Ali Khan Mahmudabad, the controversial professor of Ashoka University, was arrested for making comments on Operation Sindoor. In his now deleted social media post, the controversial professor described the media briefings by Colonel Qureshi and Wing Commander Vomika Singh as optics, further claiming that optics must translate to reality on the ground, otherwise it's just hypocrisy. Haryana Women's Commission alleged that Mahmudabad dispatched women officers in the Indian Armed Forces.
हमने 12 तारीख को उनको नोटिस किया उनके इस विषय पर और उम्मीद की कि 14 तारीख को एक सभ्य पढ़े लिखे व्यक्ति जो कि वो कहते हैं मैं एसोसिएट प्रोफेसर हूँ, उस नाते वो आएंगे और महिला आयोग में अपनी बात को रखेंगे, परंतु वो नहीं आए। हमने तुरंत अगले दिन 15 तारीख को यूनिवर्सिटी विजिट की और इन्फॉर्म किया वाइस चांसलर को, रजिस्ट्रार को कि हम आ रहे हैं और उम्मीद है कि हम आपके एसोसिएट प्रोफेसर सो कॉल्ड अली खान को वहाँ बातचीत कर लेंगे। आई वुड हैव लाइक्ड इफ अगर वो अपॉलॉजी कर लेते, लेकिन उनकी मंशा ही नहीं।
While the professor was sent to 14 days of judicial custody by a local court yesterday, today the Supreme Court of India granted interim bail to the Ashoka University professor with some tough conditions. In a major setback, the top court refused to stay the investigation on Mahmudabad and instead directed to form an SIT to probe his post in the next 24 hours. The professor has also been restrained from writing any more posts and articles on the matter, and he has been asked to surrender his passport. While the professor's defense was that his was a highly patriotic statement, the Supreme Court was not impressed. In a firm rebuke to the Ashoka University professor, the top court said, "This is not the time for such statements to gain cheap popularity." The court even termed it as dog whistling. With the Supreme Court heavily coming down on Mahmudabad, will the lobby that stood in his defense now apologize?
Okay, so we have on, let's see the sides tonight. We have Advaita Kala, and we have Deshratan Nigam, and we have Lokesh Jindal.
Speech, it becomes a responsible issue in the country. And it's not only what, it's also when. So this statement delivered by him was not just a generic academic statement or a generic observation. It certainly had a malicious intent, and the Supreme Court has done the right thing to form a committee, an SIT, to probe into the exact intent with which this statement was made. Now, this is not something ordinary. We have seen in Haryana that there is a girl, she is already, there are individuals who have been arrested on charges of spying, and there was some form of an intent, some form of intrusion into the civil society, some connects were made, and that was the right thing to do, to have such people rounded up and an investigation carried out as to what exactly was their motive and intent. Because that is not the right time to make such forms of comments, what the professor has made.
Yes.
So he deserves such form of a bashing, and I want Ashoka University to take a firm stand on this, come out clearly, take a stern action, and set a precedence against such.
Ashoka can take is to sack him, but they won't do that. You see, they want to, what do they say, Advaita, run with the hound and, what is that? Pardon me?
Run with the hare, I think.
Run with the hare and hunt with the hound. Okay. So they want to do that. Ashoka University wants to have it both ways. They want to support this lobby also, unless now we are going to keep a close watch on what Ashoka University does. See, there is an aspect of responsibility. See, Advaita, in all this intellectual obfuscation, we forget the man is a politician. He has joined the Samajwadi Party. He's tried to fight an election. Look at all the visuals of him with the Samajwadi Party cap on the campaign trail. Then he goes to Ashoka University, becomes a professor. But he's trying to incite Muslims against the Indian army, against the Indian state in a time of war. Now, how big a crime is that?
Arnab, let me give you an important point.
No, Advaita, and after Advaita, yeah, Advaita.
I think the point Lokesh made is very important. We're in the time of info wars, narrative wars, as well as kinetic wars. So we're dealing on all those fronts. So like we discussed, that young lady from Haryana who's right now under custody for possibly having spy links, there is definitely a plan underfoot wherein a certain narrative is being pushed out into the public domain. We cannot dispute that. That is happening, and it is happening with the intention of dividing communities along religious lines, as well as undermining what India has achieved with Operation Sindoor. This is very actively happening, and we shouldn't be surprised that it is. However, we cannot assume that whoever speaks out like this is actually part of that larger plan. That's why I'm saying I'm in full support of what the Supreme Court has done, which is granted him bail, conditional bail, seeing that he might be at flight risk, as well as investigating where the links lead up to, if at all. And I think that's perfectly fine and legitimate in a situation such as
this. So let me
in a time like this.
Yeah, see, I want to make a point on sleeper cells. And I'll take 1 minute on this. The problem in our country is we forget sometimes that the intellectual termites who hate our country want to eat our country from within. They want to exploit our democracy, and we are allowing them the opportunity to do so. My view is right now that we are in a very important phase in our country. We have sleeper cells everywhere who are working against the country. Now, who are these sleeper cells? They can be radicals, they can be academics, they can be urban Naxals, they can be Maoist supporters, some may be PFI surrogates, that after PFI is banned, you change your name. It's like after Lashkar-e-Toiba is banned, they change their name. Some may be openly supporting, some may call themselves overground workers, right? These are all masks. And the problem is, you want to be blind, Desh Ratan Nigam, and say, nahi, ye sab galat hai. Main keh raha hu, is desh mein hai. There are sleeper cells everywhere in our country. It becomes the responsibility of vigilant Indian citizens to identify sleeper cells in our country. Who are sleeper cells? Those who are working against our country, who want to bring our country down. It may be somebody who believes in Ghazwa-e-Hind. It may be somebody who believes in Maoist terrorism. It may be somebody who says, I'm an overground worker. But these sleeper cells, don't give me this very super elitist South Mumbai opinion. Kuch nahi hai, let's just go out and have a cheeseburger. Life is not like that. Don't live in an urban, echo chamber, Kishore. Even the financial industry of Mumbai needs to understand all finance will go agar sleeper cells active ho jayenge. Then with the changing, what is going to happen? You'll hold the country together. You'll build the economy. You'll build your wealth. But what will happen if the country falls?
Okay, Arnab, let me respond. And I hope you'll give me my time. I'm neither
No. You agree or not that vigilant Indian citizens should now have their own responsibility in exposing sleeper cells? Go to the police, file cases, stick your neck out. Very important.
Okay. Arnab, can I respond now?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So first of all, I'm not from south of Mumbai. Neither am I from Mumbai. I'm from south of India. So as a concerned citizen, I buy your point. If it is a sleeper cell and if there is investigative proof that emanates saying that there is an activity must be on the post, then the government or any SIT has every right. But let me tell you some fundamental things. It is like Congress, where the lesser you talk about them, the faster they disappear. So if it is a simple post, I don't think so. We need to go to a level of SIT. Point number one. Point number two, what makes India a vibrant democracy?
No, what is wrong with SIT? What is wrong with SIT?
Pardon me?
Because he's professor, you should not have SIT. You should have SIT for ordinary people.
मेरा प्रोफेसर से कोई मतलब नहीं है मुझे जेल में से कोई पसंद नहीं है ना मुझे नाम पसंद है ना औरंगजेब सर नाम पसंद है तो मुझे उनसे कोई मतलब नहीं
No. I think that's naive. I think that's the classic chalta hai attitude which has got us into so much problems in the first place. I think that we have to recognize the fact that there is a narrative war. The fact that this particular detention led to headlines in places like the New York Times. We know all about what the New York Times does. So it's interesting how all the wires seem to come together when these kind of incidents happen for particular people. So we are in the midst of a narrative war, and we need to be careful, and we need to be not only careful, but like Arnab said, vigilant. And if the Supreme Court, in its wisdom, feels that this justifies a deeper look, then they should take a deeper look. And I think it's very important that they do, because this is the world we live in today. Unfortunately, people are doing this.
There are sleeper cells. There are sleeper cells. There are sleeper cells everywhere. Will we realize about sleeper cells after a 9/11 kind of situation? After 9/11, what happened in America? The political commentator has earlier been supporting the Congress. I'm told he's had a change of heart. I'm not sure. Kishore Subramaniam is also with us tonight. I'll open this up. Advaita, I'd love to start with you here. What I like about what the court has said is that patriotism and nationalism, essentially, therefore national interest, has to go with free speech. This has never been said before. And this is the moot point. When people say free speech, but then what about national interests? They said, but free speech, what about national interests? Oh, we'll look at that later. That's not important. My free speech is important. And in the name of free speech, you can support Pakistan, you can speak against the nation, you can say what you want. You can justify anything, right? You can have an office in Turkey. You can have a political party office in Turkey. Somebody questions you, you can try and sue the person. Free speech. I have a right to free speech on everything. But the court says patriotic responsibility is also significant. Your take on this, please, today. Interesting developments in Supreme Court.
I think the judgment of the Supreme Court today, the pronouncements were very wise and were very calibrated. I think it's important that this sort of distinction is made. You're right. A lot of things run riot when it comes to free speech. A lot of people take undue advantage of this constitutional mechanism that we have as citizens. However, There is a time and a place for everything. This was not the right time. This was a time when communities across the country were coming together. They were united against a common enemy. To bring up these sort of issues at this point of time was hugely problematic. Subsequently, to show such disrespect for the Haryana Women's Commission, if you have been invited to present your side of the case, then you should honor that and turn up. Not only that, the chairperson goes to the university to meet with this gentleman, and he does not even bother to meet with her.
Yeah,
Is that the value you place on the Women's Commission? Is that what it means to you? I think these things are very misogynistic, this behavior. Yeah. However, I don't feel like anyone should go to jail. That's my own personal view. But the way this was handled by the professor was terrible. It was badly timed. It showed an arrogance. It showed a level of misogyny towards the Haryana Women's Commission.
No, but I take it further. You see, the person is a dangerous man. He's like Sarjil Imam. And what did Sarjil Imam say? Sarjil Imam said that the chicken's neck belongs to Muslims. Anybody who's not a Muslim should not be in the chicken's neck. Muslims must take over the chicken's neck. That area is mostly Muslim. And after Muslims take over the chicken's neck, they should cut off the chicken's neck northeast from the rest of India. At that time also, the Ishratan Nigam, some people said free speech. We said, but he's talking about provoking people to break up the country. They said free speech. I think after today's case, that could not be allowed. I think it's set a legal precedent here.
Yes, absolutely, Arnab. In fact, this professor is an urban Naxal, a kind of a sleeper cell who is activated at the opportune time and to create social disharmony in the society and, community, pitting one community against each other. Now, he says civilians suffer in the war. Those who died in the Pahalgam were butchered on the basis of religion, Hindus. Were they not civilians? He clearly, swaps it under the carpet. Now, if you read his Facebook post, it's very dangerous. He says politicians benefit out of the war and the defense industry, defense manufacturers. All Indian systems made in India were produced and manufactured in India by our own defense industries. And politicians, he's saying, government created all this. Secondly, he says war is inevitable because politics is rooted in violence. He's promoting violence. He's an urban Naxal. He's trying to create violence in politics in India. And lastly, if you look at it, he says about, the right wing is praising Colonel Qureshi and clearly establishing that he's a Marxist, urban Naxal on one side, and creating a schism or a gap or a divide in the society that should actually create kind of a social harmony. So these are very dangerous things. That is why the Supreme Court clearly said that there is complexity and dog whistling. There are coded messages which need to be gone into, and the SIT must unearth.
The messaging is very simple from him. Messaging is, Kishore, that if there is any Muslim who is presenting or being presented as a face of a nationalistic cause, even if that is of the armed forces, that Muslim, especially if it's a Muslim woman, should be run down, should be attacked. There should be an attempt at targeting her. Because he targeted Sophia Qureshi. I think he's also a very misogynistic fellow. But obviously, Ashoka University likes all this kind of stuff, obviously. That's why they allow him. He'll go back to a hero's welcome, I'm sure, at Ashoka University tomorrow. So I think today's observations of the court, hugely significant, very significant here. It's a blow to the Tukre lobby. They haven't understood yet.
Okay. Good evening, Arnab, and good evening to all my panelists. Allow me 30 seconds to a minute to express my viewpoints. I do not subscribe to whatever he has written.
Location on the left, faster
I am a firm believer that unless the speech incites violence, you don't take an action to the extent of arresting a person. That's my first point. Allow me to complete. You have all the time to counter me. Point number 2. I believe people like this who put down our army, put down women, put down any community and try to incite violence or whatever their core intent, which I am not aware of, should be ignored. Today, after the Supreme Court, I am nobody to comment on Supreme Court's judgment. But let me tell you one thing. An SIT for a Facebook post, I think that's exaggerated. That's my personal view. I am nobody to say
No,
whether
1 minute.
right
What he's saying is, Kishore, let me get location.
One more point.
Kishore, one more. Before your next point, I want to respond to your first point, get location. You see, don't think this fellow is innocent. He's trying to tell Muslims that if you're in the army, don't fight for India. He's trying to tell Muslims, if you're wearing the uniform, don't fight for the country. Don't be like Sophia Qureshi. Muslims are being troubled everywhere in India. Muslims can't breathe. Muslims can't leave. This is his logic. Therefore, he's targeting Sophia Qureshi. And if you're a Muslim woman, it's worse for you because I'll target you in a misogynistic way also. And interesting, Ashoka University, which says it's all pretty progressive, is this Ashoka University, this Tukre lobby there, is clapping for a man who's abusing women. I mean, his position is more extreme than that of the All India Muslim Personal Law Board. Lokesh, no, there is a war. No, there is a war. You're targeting a Muslim woman. That is deliberate targeting, right, Lokesh?
First of all, the gentleman is a professor in political science, head of department. He knows very well what exactly is the state of emergency, although the emergency was not proclaimed, but we were at a state of war, a kinetic war. And when we talk about free...
The woke lobby suddenly woke up. Oh my God, there is terrorism has hit us. What did you think? Terrorism will not hit you at home. Were there not sleeper cells that led to 9/11? That led to the terrorist attacks? You see, Deshrata Nema, abhi bhi log hain. They are getting into this little Aman ki Asha situation again. Sab kuch theek hai. Carry on. Let's go back. Have biryani with Pakistan. I'm saying there are sleeper cells. And universities must not allow any sleeper cells.
Yes. In fact, Arnab, if you recall, it was the same Ashoka University which passed a resolution that Kashmir is not part of India. Please recall that news.
Was it the university or a union or group within the university?
Yes. And therefore, let me point out few things. The observation of the court that what about the duties is a paradigm shift, because earlier they were only talking about rights. Now they are saying that rights and duties have to be balanced. This is a paradigm shift by the Supreme Court in this observation. And second, one of the most important thing that this professor has written in the letter is the creation of diverse and secular India is an illusion and an illusion.
Lokesh.
So he's doubting the creation of India's secularism and is saying it is an illusion and an illusion. So it's a very important point that you have to notice. This is how he's inciting people. And secondly, to the panelist who was saying that violence has to take place, only then you can bring in certain sections. No, there is something called attempt to an offense for which equal punishment is given for actual offense being committed. This is a legal position. So therefore, here clear an incitement of violence, creating disharmony and enmity between communities, and also, imputing intention to the government of India and also our defense industries, bringing down and tearing down our defense industries, and also promoting violence, saying that politics is rooted in violence and therefore war is inevitable. It is not the other way around. He's saying war is inevitable because politics in India is rooted in violence. That's Maoist ideology. That's Marxist and urban Naxals ideology. And there are sleeper cells, as Mr. Jindal pointed out. They are being arrested every day. Spies are being arrested. It is being unearthed. It is high time these people should be taken to task and
exactly
inside jail and given the highest punishment in law.
Yes. Lokesh.
Yes. First of all, the issue is way more, I would say, complicated than it seems. That individual purposely talked about mob lynching. He talked about, he actually put up a message that, okay, there is a colonel, she's Muslim, although she is leading the entire brigade, but at home things are not the same. I mean, it exactly had a very deep intent. That individual no way stated something out of academic observation or anything. It had a way deeper intent, and it was a dog whistle intended for certain form. It was some form of a signaling that was there, for which there was to be some form of a reaction. And I want that there must be use of stringent provisions of laws and the SIT must come out with a significant finding as early as possible. Because such people, they not only vilify, they not only demean our armed forces, they put a bad name for the country in the international sphere as well. So this was a war whereby Hindus, Muslims, every section of India, every Indian citizen came together. In fact, the Kashmiris themselves came together, condemned Pakistan, they showed Pakistan its place, but then such rots, they come out and they say that no, it's not that. The India is not fighting, the picture is something different. So I would say that there must be something very, very credible. I mean, it should set a precedence and a warning to such form of individuals who destroy the peace and harmony of the country.
And for me, the biggest takeaway, viewers, is that the Supreme Court has essentially said today what I've been waiting to hear for a long time, that adherence to national interest is fundamental to the exercise of free speech. Imagine if we had a judgment like this in 2016, then Rahul Gandhi would never have been able to support the people who said, Bharat tere tukde honge, inshallah, inshallah. The whole sedition issue in JNU would have never happened. I really congratulate the Supreme Court for giving such excellent observations today while looking at this case of the Ashoka University professor. Ashoka University management, don't look the other way. You have a responsibility too.
लाल रंग इसका अपार, तीखा कम है फिर भी स्वाद, बेमिसाल बेमिसाल MDH कश्मीरी,
MDH कश्मीरी।
MDH